We're going to go ahead and get started because this is really about meeting GSS requirements for data collection, compilation, communication, and reporting for projects and studies. Longest title ever, Daniel. Just saying.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, we want to welcome everybody. This is a lot of focus more on EPA today. There's a bunch of folks from EPA today, but we also have folks from FDA, USDA, Veteran Affairs, APHIS, and the Inspector General's office. Oh, boy. All right, there you go. That's what we have. I want to welcome Jimmy Beertis. He's the study director with the IR4 project. And you're based where, Jimmy?
In Raleigh, North Carolina, at NC State University.
Raleigh, North Carolina. And I appreciate you being here today to talk about this. Jimmy's going to share some real-life examples. We had some requests for that. Actually, I'll read some of those in just a minute. And Daniel Thompson is the head of software development at iAdvantage Software, which we'll be discussing e-study, right, today?
That's correct, Dave.
Awesome. Fantastic. And just so everybody knows, this session does include vendor product information, and GSA gave this to us for you so that you can participate because it's provided to you, the audience, for informational purposes only. And your participation in this, it does not mean you're going to buy from anybody. How about that? The session is being recorded. So we'll get a copy of this out to you so that you can share it with your teams if you would like. A quick overview of the agenda today. We'll give you some introductions on iAdvantage as well as Jimmy and the IR4 project. We're talking about gold standard science directives, and we'll also talk about implementing that. And we're actually going to tie two pieces together, acronyms. It's an acronym soup today, GSS and GLP, which stands for what, Daniel?
Good laboratory practice.
Good laboratory practice. And it's pretty amazing how those two overlap with each other, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of overlap.
So we will talk about challenges as well as getting into the case study with the IR4 project. So you can see how it's being used right now with data that EPA and USDA uses, right?
Correct.
Awesome. And if you have any Q&A, if you'd like to, you can throw that in at any time. That'll be open as well. And we'll get to get you guys out of here. Our objective is to get you out of here by about 10 of so you can get on with the rest of your day. And let me make sure my polls are working the way they should. Let's look at this one. All right. So here's the first question. How familiar are you with GSS, which stands for Gold Standard Science, right? And as outlined in the executive order. So maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. Maybe you are on the ball and you know everything about it, which is great. We'd love to have you dialogue on that as well. If you have something to throw in, we always love that. And let us know if you have any comments or anything else that you would like us to know for this. Speaking of feedback from you, this will be the best briefing ever. Sheila from EPA says it covered what data cannot be shared under the EOs. We're not going to get too much into that. We have another one from an attorney, Elisa, data with the public, because everything that you're collecting, at least what we're talking about today, right, Jimmy? Everything that you're collecting actually is for public distribution, right?
That's correct. It is.
All right. So resources and slide were provided after the presentation. I'm going to give you one better, Nathan. I'm going to pop this in. Well, I say I am. Hold on. Let me collect the session docs link and pop it in here. And you'll be able to access the session docs. If you could do me a favor and let me know that actually worked. Thumbs up if that actually works. The presentation includes good takeaways for implementing the EO from Dwayne. Hopefully we get to that. Right, Jimmy?
That's correct.
Precise and to the point. So we'll get right at it as soon as we get started, Dennis. The briefing includes case studies for real-world examples. Alva, you are in the right spot because we're talking about that today. Melissa, collecting and sharing and accessing quality data. Good term, right? Quality data with minimal duplication. Two things that are part of the GSS, right, Daniel?
Absolutely.
Where everyone benefits. Ooh, I like that, Melissa Gant. That's awesome. Christy says there will be a metric developed to determine gold standard science is being met. Ooh. Wow. I don't know. Are we going to talk? I mean, I think overall, if we're doing this using GLP, probably going to meet that, you think?
It give you a better shot at meeting whatever that metric will be,
Yep.
maybe in the future. So
I
yeah,
don't I don't know that there is a metric yet, Christy. Great question though, don't you think? All right, so Ayantha says proper data collections and any new requirements related to the EO. Absolutely important, Jimmy, right? That we have proper data collection processes
That's correct.
at the beginning, right?
It's easier to take care of up front than it is on the back end, for sure.
Absolutely. Jamie says, I learned something new beyond what we're already doing. Hopefully that's the case, Jamie. And Megan says, I'm looking forward to this. I appreciate you, Megan. I'm glad that you're here. And Mark says, it helped me understand why we're not already maintaining scientific integrity. Ooh, a little poke in the eye there. That's what I heard. Right? All right. So if you have anything else you'd like us to do, make sure you pop in the chat and let us know, which please address. And we have one here, demo and or specific case study of tools, software for study design, QA and QC, and project management. Absolutely spot on. You agree with that, gentlemen?
Yes.
We will do that, Nathan. And how broadly can science be interpreted? I don't know if we're covering that one, Dwayne. I don't know if that's in our if that's in our pay grade. Challenges related to data communication. Xavier, that's an important one, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yes, I would agree that it is very
Yep.
important.
And another one from Alva saying, focus on reporting requirements, how to streamline data that prevents wordiness and duplication. Melissa, on point. And opinionated language, she says. Ooh, I like it. Support for EPA study collections and publications. Love that. Proper data collections and any new requirements related to the EO. Love that. Defining what is data quality from Christina. Wow, that's a pretty good one, isn't it, Daniel?
that is good. Yeah.
I like that. And the relationship of the EO to DQA, which is data quality assurance. Is that right? Is that what you mean by that, Virginia? Let me know. Make sure that's right. All right. The link says an agency message that says it's insecure. Is everybody getting that message? Because it's the first time we're using, we transitioned to this. I want to make sure everybody can get this Dropbox. But that happens. If you have any questions, we love the questions. You can raise your hand. You can also do private dialogue to jblackburn at iadvantagesoftware.com. And I think yours is in there too, Daniel, at the end. We love the feedback. And please do let me know that you can get to the session docs. Or is everybody getting the insecure message? Let me know. How we doing? By the way, we have Carolyn who says Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. She likes that. Love that. Everybody getting that? All right. I want to make sure we're gonna figure this out, and we'll make sure that we get you those docs. It should look like this, and it's going directly. We're using Dropbox because that was you're still not getting the link, huh? Hold on. Let's try this again. It should work. We did this yesterday with agencies and it worked, but who knows? Maybe something's happened since yesterday. Never know about that cybersecurity stuff. No matter what, we will get you those recaps. We'll get you a recap email, no matter what. So Daniel Thompson is with iAdvantage, and tell us a little bit about you guys.
Sure, Dave. Well, we're a software company headquartered in here in Cary, North Carolina. We were founded in '03. And collectively, we have over 30 years of data capture, management, and reporting, primarily in the agricultural, chemical, and seed industry. So the majority of the data that's collected through our platform supports EPA and USDA type studies or registrations. We are a small business as well as a GSA multi-award schedule holder.
Awesome. And you guys kind of have been working with EPA and USDA behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, so our primary clients are clients you see on screen that a lot of the data that they collect through the platform is used to submit to a lot of these authorities, EPA, USDA, some other agencies. So majority of the data that they use in submitting to these agencies is produced in our platform and reported from our platform.
Awesome. Awesome. And so this gives you some good insight. And Jimmy, you're going to give us some great examples of how that data is being used by the government, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to share the results real quick about how familiar folks are. So we have 29% have never heard about it before, which is great. That's why we love doing these, right, Daniel?
Absolutely.
All right. And maybe you've heard it, but don't know the details. That's great. That's the majority of the folks. And we have some folks that are very familiar. We love to hear what you are after or while even we're talking about this, right, Jimmy? We love to hear that feedback of how this is affecting their agencies, right?
For sure.
So I'm going to let me go back here. Am I still sharing? I gotta stop sharing first. Let's do this right, Dave. There we go. All right. So when you think of gold standard science, which principle comes to mind first? And these are the ones we're actually going to be talking about today. And while they're doing that, let's talk about what these directives mean, Daniel. So when you think about this, reproducible and transparent, all these things are actually outlined in the executive order. So we can take a look at these. Like I said, in the handouts, we'll make sure you get those. This actual piece. When you think about these, let's talk to me about what you see as what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so the ones that stand out to me are the ones that have the most overlap with GLP or good laboratory practices, which is data that's reproducible, being transparent with the data, making sure that you're capturing any errors and uncertainties, having the availability to peer review, and also having strong data integrity. So these five are right at the core of the eStudy platform, starting with reproducibility, making sure that your study protocol is adhered to through the platform by giving the user guide rails to make sure that they stay in line with what you're trying to portray in that study, making sure that you get the right data points, making sure that you're not duplicating data, making it easier for them to collect the data. And probably the most important one on this list is making sure that you're transparent with the data, whether that's through the signed electronic records, audit trails, or just being able to export the data in a raw format. Because there's nothing worse than getting data and not being sure where it came from, or not being, sure if it's of the highest integrity. So making sure that all that is captured is very important.
And that actually goes to what Melissa said. So the quality of the data, minimal duplication, right? Because that's another part of it, right? And that everybody can benefit, and making sure that it prevents wordiness and opinionated language. All of those are really good. And that kind of embodies what the GSS standards should be, right?
Absolutely. Yep. You hit it right on the nail.
Yeah.
So another thing is error and uncertainty. There's going to be times in studies where you get data that you're not expecting, and making sure that you can capture that. But the important part is that you have some sort of deviation tracking, whether it's, on the front end when they're collecting the data, or in the back end when you are running your reports, making sure that you can see those deviations, so that you can plan for those, or maybe do a restudy to make sure that that wasn't just a one-off. Another one is peer review, whether that's, strict peer review, through collaboration, or maybe if it's even quality assurance. I know a lot of times it ends up being a quality assurance unit that is coming through and looking at the data, if peer review is not implemented within your workflow. And last but not least is going to be integrity. I mean, that's one of the most important here, right along with data quality is going to be integrity. Because if you can't trust the data, then the data is no good. So making sure that you're able to actually pull the metadata tied to the data itself not only ensures that you're ready for an audit, but it also gives you data provenance.
So, Joanna's asking, the title, Restoring the Gold Standard, can you give a specific example of what was being done wrong? The 5 standards you spoke of are the norm for data evaluation. You're absolutely right, Joanna. And that's why some of these you're going to see as we kind of roll through of how the data gets collected from the time of the design of the study, right, Daniel?
Right.
To the time when you're and the data collection. In fact, we're going to talk about that in next up. So if you can let us know when you think the gold standard, which principle comes to mind first. We're going to end that poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and boom. And look at this. 82% are at the data integrity is what they think of first. And that goes to Johanna, that actually goes to what the end goal is. Because without doing it right throughout this, right, Jimmy? If we don't do it right from the beginning, we're going to come up with garbage data or data that needs a lot of work, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to do everything up front that you can through your protocol writing to ensure that the data is accurate and appropriate.
Love it. All right. So this gets to the crux of it, Johanna. Great question. And this will kind of start to answer that. And you'll probably see this happen as we review this. You'll probably start to see some of the holes that other folks might have that aren't following the right standards. So what tools or systems does your organization primarily use for scientific data capture and reporting? Do you start with paper? Do you do it in Excel? You're using an in-house software. Maybe you're using a commercial notebook or LIMS system or something in between. Multiple. You can have all those. And then let us know where you're at. Because and I can say this, right, Daniel? We've done several of these briefings to collect the information from folks that are doing this kind of data collection. And the number one, we already know what most folks are using to collect and manage the data, and it's already looking like it's going the same way. So as we're doing that, Jimmy, I'm going to pop your slides up for us.
Okay.
And again, Jimmy Burtis, am I saying it right?
It's Burtis, rhymes with Curtis.
Jimmy Burtis. He's a study director with the IR4 project, which is in North Carolina, as you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about the IR4 project, because a lot of folks might not even know that this exists.
Yeah, so we've been around for a little over 60 years.
Is that all?
That's it. And what our mission is so decades ago, it was identified that while most manufacturers would produce chemistries and pesticides available for growers, they were not interested in spending the money that would be necessary for the specialty crops because they were not going to get that investment back. And so as a compromise, IR4 projects is the crux of government agencies, private industry, and university academia. And what we do is we identify on a yearly basis pests that are problems to specialty crop growers, which includes anything grown on less than 300,000 acres in the U.S. There are times that we will do large major row crops, but it is for very specific reasons and generally limited to a very specific geographic region. We had an issue in California in rice production that we did some work on in the past. And so what we're charged with is conducting GLP studies to show the amount of residues that are left behind after these pesticides are used in a very specific manner. And this data is then submitted to the EPA for a tolerance to be established and then for the use to be put onto a label. Next slide, please. Mm-hmm. And so we have different regions within the U.S., and we also work with Canada. We have partnerships with the Canadian government and their pest management center, in which we can share data back and forth and stuff of that nature. There are some rules and regulations with regards to that, but you can see these 4 regions. We cover the entire U.S. We use researchers from land-grant universities. We use some contract researchers. We also use a lot of USDA researchers as well. And so that's who do the field work. And then we have 2 regional labs where we conduct the chemical analysis of the residues. And then there's also one other USDA lab that we use. Next slide, please.
You bet. All right, I'm going to end this poll real quick, and I'm going to start this other one because this gets into the crux of it with the challenges of using the data. And Johanna, you were asking the right question, and I'm going to answer Richard real quick. because we need to educate folks about GSS first, and then we can talk about how using GLP systems, right, Jimmy? We're going to give you direct examples of what it looks like to do it the right way. So that's the most important thing, is make sure folks understand. Number one, GSS is a directive. Yes, you might already be in line with that. But I can tell you this: if you go back, I'll show you that the vast majority of everybody's using Excel to manage their data, and that creates holes all throughout the integrity of your study, doesn't it, Daniel?
Absolutely. And sorry about that. My internet went out. I'm on a hotspot now on my laptop. So
but fantastic.
sorry about that. Perfect timing.
And Jimmy's going to show you're actually coming from paper, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then human beings, we'll talk about that. The challenges of this, because if you're using outdated tools like Excel or paper, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And that's why, Richard, I appreciate your comments. We want to make sure we're setting it up from a standpoint of why this is so important. So while they're answering that about which of the challenges most limits your ability to meet the GSS standards, right, and expectations, tell us about what you guys did in implementing. So what you did, you had a problem. What was the problem, and what were you trying to solve?
So when I first showed up at the IR4 project, it was a little over 5 years ago, and everything was done on paper, which, while in practice is great to some degree, we had been doing it on paper for decades. There are inherent problems with paper. I can't speak for anybody but myself. My handwriting is terrible, and sometimes it's difficult to read handwriting. And so we started looking at where can we help ourselves in some of these problems. And what we identified were needs where we had to have a regulated software and computer system that we thought about building this in-house, but due to the nature of regulations surrounding and validations surrounding GLP practices, we looked at several different options. And the first option, or the best option that came for us, was the eStudy and eField data book system that we use from iAdvantage. We needed customizable forms because we don't do just corn or just soybeans or just cotton or some of these larger row crops. I mean, we do everything from coffee to basil to, about 75% of what's on your supper plate every night, including beans and peas and stuff of that nature, is the crops that we look at on a regular basis. And then one of the other things is if you have paper, you can just carry it out to the field and collect the data and write it down right there anytime and anywhere. So we needed to have that availability too, which they have an offline product, which allows us, when we do not have Wi-Fi or internet access through our data captures, whether it's a computer or a tablet or phone or whatever the case may be, we can still capture data. And then one of the things that we found to be a big issue for us was people would go out and they'd make their applications, and we may not know for 6 to 9 months or more after the application was made that it was made incorrectly, whether there was not enough test substance put onto the crop or if there was too much. And so with this new system, we can look in real time, generally at the time of data input or within 24 hours. And if it's within 24 hours, it's because the researcher hasn't inputted that data themselves that quickly. That would be the only time for a lag. But we can see if there's an error in the application of the test substance. And then we wanted to be able to generate reports and the ability to audit any data at any time. And all of these things were met by the iAdvantage software that we came across. We continuously make improvements and stuff, but we can go on to the next page. Mm-hmm. And so where did this start? In 2022, we were looking at several different areas. In 2023, I think we had 5 studies that we rolled out and did tests. 2024 was our first year of widespread use throughout the organization. And one of the things that we allowed in 2024 was that they could still use paper as a backup, because we did have a wide variety. I mean, obviously, we're an organization that goes across the entire country, so we have a wide variety of ages and comfortability with using electronic formats. And so we wanted to give them
Are you
comfort.
saying, Jimmy, that some folks are electronically challenged?
Yeah, I am. I'm an evolutionary reject living in a high-tech world, and it's okay. And so one of the things is we wanted to make sure people were very comfortable with this. But in 2025, we actually put into some of our language that paper was no longer available unless it absolutely had to be available. And so, you know, one of the things that we insist on doing is continuous improvement in our forms and our data capture. Where does it make sense? How can we make this easier for the end user to use? And how can we make it easier for reports to be generated? Next slide, please.
Yep. I do want to throw in that by rolling this out and by doing the proper data collection, like I'm going back to Iantha and Melissa being able to grab that data right is the beginning of making sure that you're meeting the GSS standards, right? Isn't that the idea?
That is the idea.
So you challenge. We're not the only. And let us know if you're one to have some of these challenges too. But these challenges are pretty much universal, aren't they? Wouldn't you say for a lot of these folks?
Yeah, I've been a part of change management and other venues and jobs that I've had, and it's absolutely true. So
how did you guys do it?
One of the things is what we did is we built a build team. So we had people that were representative of the quality assurance organization. We had study directors, we had the field research directors, we had executive management on this team, we had regional field coordinators and we all got together and we said, all right, what we tried our best to do, and we actually did a pretty good job with it up front, was to, as much as possible, identically mimic the paper versions of what we had been using for decades, so the transition would be easier.
Right.
And so we did that to the best of our abilities, and then we had to write SOPs and do a bunch of validation testing, and also write guidance documentation on how to actually use this system. And then we went out and started in 2023 with full implementation, like I discussed before. We had in-person training sessions with me and another of my colleagues, where we went to 5 different places, Hawaii, New Jersey, Michigan, Florida, and stuff of that nature. And then we continuously had webinars or Zoom trainings. And then one of the things that we feel very strongly about is that we seek input from the end users. What could make your life easier in terms of using this product? How can we make these forms easier for use? And stuff of that nature. And then the other thing is we want to be very, very cognizant that we want to resolve any issues that may arise, whether it's with expertise within the IR4 project, or if we have to seek help from iAdvantage. And we have never had a problem go on for longer than 24 hours when we've had to escalate something to iAdvantage. They've been very, very easy to work with and very, very responsive to our needs.
So you guys, so Daniel's team helped you guys get ramped up and build the documentation to make it work. You supplied them with in-field. What did you use for in the field, Daniel? How did that work?
Well, we support multiple different devices. So we're in the field. We're going to normally recommend one of our mobile device apps, and that allows for offline capture of data, and then upload data whenever you have network again available. So that's going to be on the iOS platform or natively installed on a Windows device. So that could be like a Surface tablet or even like a Windows laptop. But if it's direct input, we have a web application that you can do that from on any device.
Super. So you got into the field trials, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so we work under GLP. Everything we do is under GLP now, at least for our residue studies. And what we were seeing is approximately 100 pages of raw data per field trial, and you have around 300 to 350 trials per year. That's a lot of paper. And we have to hold on to this paper and we have to keep it, and we can't do anything to get rid of it. We have to keep it for as long as the registration is still available and still active.
Which is, how long does that's forever, right?
We've got paper from the 60s that we still hold on to in an offsite archive location. So, I mean, we have well over 3,000 banker boxes full of paper data at this point.
My God.
So, and those were moved from New Jersey to North Carolina over the last couple of years. And then one of the biggest things that, and we're just starting to get into this, and this is probably, from my perspective as a study director, one of the most exciting parts of this is basically the data that is entered into the eField data book through eStudy can be pulled out and used to write a report. And so if we have a tomato study that requires 17 field trials, that's 17 different field data books that when they were in paper, I would have to go read and try to read somebody's sloppy handwriting that was writing in dirty pages from being in the middle of the field covered in dirt and stuff of that nature and understand exactly what they wrote. Here it comes out there is no worry for transcript errors or anything of that nature, where that was a common theme. And it wasn't anybody's fault. This is just the nature of how we collected the data in the past through handwriting and stuff of that nature. And so for a 17 trial field data summary for me to write as a study director for 17 trials, that could probably take a week to a week and a half. Now I can do it in 30 minutes or so. I mean, it is drastic in the amount of time that I can save. That doesn't mean that I don't still have to QC the data. I absolutely do, but it's a lot easier when it comes in electronic format and can be taken care of at that point. So the next slide, please. So this is one of my favorite pictures. This is one of the first eField data books that we got. What you see on the right-hand side is a typical trial notebook of 100 to 150 pages, reduced down to 15, maybe 20. What we are able to do is get calculation errors and instantly know whether or not there was an error. The amount of reduction in paper and shipping and handling and storage costs is ridiculous. Everything is time-stamped in an audit. And then iAdvantage has data backups and is a lot more secure. When we were using paper on average, we'd probably lose 1 to 5 notebooks a year in the post or through FedEx and stuff of that nature. And that happened from time to time. And like I said earlier, the time to write reports goes from days to hours at most. So we're saving ourselves a bunch of time, and we're really looking forward to really getting into that this year when we have more and more notebooks that have finished the QC and QA process.
So we've been talking to some other folks, right, Daniel, about the impact of transition from something like Excel and paper to this. What have you heard from folks as kind of the FTE load and the improvements that you can get?
Yeah, so when we hear mixed results on, depending on how big a lot of these studies and stuff can be, but the general number that we've kind of come up with based off of the input that we've gotten is about team of 5, about to a team of 1 to 2, so about 1.5, people down from 5. So I mean, it's a drastic reduction. And the reduction only gets more and more as you get later in the process. So you're typically putting more effort in on the front end to design things that are going to be repeatable with the design of your studies and input into the system. And then from there, things get a lot easier through data collection, and then reporting is as simple as once you have your reports designed and you have all your data variables put into your report format. It's a matter of clicking a button and getting all that data pulled in from your data collection, and then additional data as well.
And going with what some of the folks are asking about is, how long does it take to at least get it off the ground from the time that you say, hey, we want to take this from a paper study or whatever. Some folks are using email too, right? Or some other collection methodology to bring that in. You're involved from the beginning to help them through that process. Is that right, Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a discovery period where we kind of see where, because every organization situation is going to be unique. We kind of dip our toes into their world to see, what their current processes are like, and see if we can, like Jimmy and IR4's case, they were coming from paper. So we tried to mimic those as closely as possible, especially for users that are going from paper or another system to our system. The transition has got to be as smooth as possible, so you don't have, growing pains. So we spend time with the organization to kind of figure out what they have at that point in time. And then from there, try to design something that's similar, and then, make improvements as time goes. So it's really going to be a case by case basis, but I would say about a 6-month period, give or take, depending on how complex the organization is. But then after that point, there's going to be realized benefits.
And Jimmy, does that jive with what you experienced, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think we first initially reached out to iAdvantage probably in early part of the year. And by 6 to 7 months later, we were in a sandbox testing our forms and doing a lot of testing. We are a fairly large organization, and we don't do things the way that most people do, I guess is the best way to put that. We give our researchers a lot of freedom to make decisions within the protocol, but we adhere to the protocol and stuff of that nature. But we are such a different organization than most of the crop protection companies that you'll see. So it probably took us a little bit longer in that, and we had to go through probably a little bit more of a convoluted decision-making tree before we could actually move forward, I guess
I cannot imagine you had a convoluted decision-making tree.
Yeah, so, but we got there eventually, and we're really, really happy with the product that we have.
I'm glad to hear that. So we are going to get into the next steps, and we'll get you guys out of here. Let us know if you need this now. We'll make sure you get a demo, or if you're very likely, whatever you need, you can get a demo specific to your agency, right, Daniel?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to do that.
And then if you need more information, just let us know where you are. Be glad to be able to supply that to you. The objective was not to be doing a demo today. The objective was to say, all right, here's the challenges that folks have, right? And a lot of folks didn't even know that the GSS executive order existed. So that's one of the most important things is there's new requirements that are coming down on folks' head, and we want to make sure you get what you need. So I mentioned earlier that you're under no obligation to buy from anybody here, including iAdvantage software. But if you want to, you can, because you have a GSA schedule, right, Daniel?
That's correct.
So you can absolutely do that. And just like you did, Jimmy, if you don't want to bite off the whole thing all at once, you guys did a pilot and did a proof of concept and said, all right, is this going to work for IR4? And then you could roll it out on a broader scale, right?
Absolutely.
I think, and that's a great move. I'll make sure, folks. I know that we had some difficulties getting to the Dropbox. I want to make sure we get that information to you. We will send those as attachments directly to your email, and it'll have the briefing presentation, all the documents that we had that are in the Dropbox. Some of the folks were able to get it. You'll get a link to the video. It'll take a couple of hours for Zoom to finalize this, and then we'll package that up and get it to you. And then if you'd like to meet up with Daniel or anybody else on the iAdvantage team, and if you want to talk to Jimmy directly and bypass anything from the vendor, you can talk to Jimmy directly, right, Jimmy?
That's correct.
And we really do appreciate you being here today to share your success stories. And I think that's what it's all about. Making sure folks know that they have access to quality products. If you have any questions, we're going to open it up in just a minute. Then we'll get you out of here by 10 of, at least, right? That's the whole objective. If you have something you just don't want everybody else and their mother to see, send it to dthompson@iadvantagesoftware.com, and we'll make sure you get that. And we want to, if you got to go, we're going to let you get out of here early. If you have any other questions, we will get to that. But Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. And if you don't fit into that category, Happy Holidays and Happy New Year to everybody. And we'll get to some questions now for what you guys got. And anybody else? Anybody got any questions? Well, I'm going to make sure I'm going to go back to some of the other questions and make sure. Appreciate that feedback. Appreciate that we did a good job. Is everybody good with how to streamline the data that prevents wordiness? The way that you do that is by tightening that up at the beginning, right, Daniel?
Yeah, make sure your design is tight. And like I said, making sure that, whatever system you're using, make sure that you have guardrails in place to prevent people from giving unnecessary information. Make your data points, make your variables very specific so they know exactly. And on top of that, include instructions for what exactly it is, what the purpose of the data collection is, so they know exactly what it is that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And that goes to what Melissa was talking about as well. Just tighten it down from the beginning, because it's harder to unscrew it once you can't read the handwriting, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, it makes like handwriting. I could live without it.
And that gets us to what Christina was talking about, which is defining what is data quality. Data quality is that it is tightened up, right, Daniel?
Absolutely. And Richard just asked a question. So this software is similar to an eNotebook/LIMS system. Yes, I would put it in that category. However, we like to say that we have more features than most eNotebook/LIMS systems.
Yep. And so you want to go into that? Let me pop Richard open if we want to. Hey, Richard, you can unmute if you want. So what are you using today, and what is the outcome of that? Because I think some of it is the collection part, and then the other part is the reporting part, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. You want to? What are you using today, Richard?
Element. And is that an eNotebook? I'm not familiar. Is that an eNotebook, or is that more of a LIMS system?
It's mostly a LIMS system.
Okay. So the majority of the work that you do is surrounded by a laboratory of some sort?
Correct. We have a field element to our work and a laboratory element to our work.
Okay. And does the LIMS system support field data on top of laboratory data?
It does not.
Okay. Is there a separate system for the field information?
No, we still use paper for field data collection, and the laboratory uses the LIMS system for collecting their results and summarizing it, record keeping purposes, so on and so forth.
Okay. So it's similar, and it definitely would be applicable to your situation, and we definitely would love to know more. It would be a situation where our product could handle actually all of that. There are some LIMS specific things that our product would not handle inside the laboratory itself. And I'd love to give you some more details on that. But our platform is very open-ended on what the data is, and allows the users to define and design that on their end. So it doesn't necessarily fit inside just the notebook box or just the LIMS box, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then how does your software product wrap into the federal government's requirements for data security? And then last question I would have for you is, how does it wrap into, say, accreditation issues? So if you're ISO 17025 accredited, or
Gotcha. Great question.
Or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just recently got our SOC 2 Type 2 report. So we're working on that front for security. We also have recently had a gap assessment for FedRAMP. We're really just looking to dip our toes into the government and get a sponsor so we can go down the FedRAMP path, because that's always going to be a question for any cloud vendor out there. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to continue the conversation if that's something you'd be interested in.
I was hoping this was more a presentation along the lines of what your actual product was, but it was not.
Right.
Yeah, and Richard, yeah, the objective, especially in briefings like this, is really to help people understand what and why, right? So why is this happening, and what are the new guidance standards, and those types of things. And we try to keep it less of a product push than a more of an education push. But we'll make sure you get what you need. I promise. Sound good?
Sure.
I appreciate it. Thanks much. Let's see. Any other questions before we jump? Appreciate you guys sticking around. If there's anything else that you need, please reach out to Daniel directly, and we'll get you guys out of here. If there's no other additional questions, I just want to make sure we hit everything we did. Got some applause going on. Great job, Jimmy. Really appreciate you, Jimmy, and I appreciate what your work that you do, and everybody else that's here that's working hard for the American folks. That and we don't even see this stuff, right? I don't particularly like peas, Jimmy, but I love the fact that you're taking care of green beans.
Yes, we are, among many other crops.
All right. Well, we'll get you guys out. Thank you very much, and happy holidays to everybody. And if there's anything else that you need, please reach out directly to the folks here. They'd love to help you, right, Daniel?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Right. Appreciate y'all. Happy holidays.